I did not think that I would be as affected as I am as someone that works on the floor, and I'm sure that there's so many other people in hospitality that feel this way. I feel like my skills are not useful, I guess, in the same sense. I can't serve people, I can't run them through the menu and make their night. But yeah, I guess I really kind of missed that connection, and I didn't realise how lucky I was and how much I loved that job until it wasn't my job anymore.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Imagine learning your trade in some of the best restaurants the country has ever produced. In doing so, you build up the skills and the bravery to realise your dream. Opening your very own restaurant. In your first year of trade, you not only become a hub of the community, you grab the attention of the food media and make the top 10 list of the nation's best restaurants. But before you can catch your breath, a global pandemic turns everything on its head. Dash Rumble, together with a partner Ross McQuinn, opened Pilot in the leafy suburb of Ainslie in the nation's capital, Canberra. Together with the clever young chef in Malcolm Hanslow, they gave Canberra a taste of the new wave of dining. Dash Rumble, you're with us now. How are you going?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. Before we get to sort of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and how it's affected your business, do you want to just take us on a little journey on and just tell us how Pilot started?
Yeah. I guess Ross, I and Mal met at a restaurant called 86 in Braddon, and then we worked there for a couple of years. We all went our separate ways, and then we all kind of realised that we wanted to do something at some point. And I was working in Sydney at the time, so was Mal, and Ross had just finished up at Pulp Kitchen and was making gin at Underground Spirits, and then he was like, let's just do it. So yeah, we decided to open Pilot in Ainslie in the old Pulp Kitchen site. We bought it off Gus, who had owned it and owns 86 at the moment. Yeah, and it just kind of all happened, I guess.
So what was your vision of the restaurant? And is this a self-funded restaurant? This is obviously their first endeavour, hence the name Pilot.
Yeah.
Do you want to just tell us a bit about, what the plan was with the restaurant?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess we just wanted to do something that we couldn't find in Canberra. Like whenever we wanted to eat out and experience things, we'd kind of make our way to Sydney and go to so many restaurants that we think were amazing and who we wanted to be like. And Canberra's great, and we do have so many restaurants here, but we thought that we could kind of add to that scene and do something that had our own kind of our own version of like what we thought an awesome restaurant would be. So I mean, Mal does an amazing job with the food. He works with a lot of local producers, like so many people do at the moment. His food's presented really simply, but it's so complex, and he thinks about things in a crazy way. I guess in terms of like the style of service, we wanted to use an like all Australian wine list, and do a food pairing. Do a wine pairing that was interesting and fun, but not like crazy expensive. I'm not a sommelier, but we just wanted to make something fun and enjoyable, I guess, that we thought that Canberra needed.
And do you want to just tell us, I mean, this is your first year of trade. What was the first year like for you guys? Because you got a lot of press and a lot of acknowledgement. Can you tell us a bit about that ride?
Yeah. So the first few months were interesting. There was lots of ups and downs, let's be honest, like any new business. Kind of a funny story from some of the first few months was I was coming back from a funeral. It was a Wednesday night, and Ross had messaged me and said, hey, look, I've seen that John Lethlane is in town. You're going to have to come. And I was like, okay, cool, but all right. Wasn't in the best mental state. But anyway, got to the restaurant, And we'd only had like 6 people booked that night, as you do when you're a new restaurant. So we had to call in all our mates to come and fill the room. And the funny thing is, the first line in that review that he wrote was describing our mate Joel, who rocked up in a beanie and Birkenstocks and socks, which is kind of funny. But yeah, like I guess in terms of like the press side of things, everyone has been so great. I guess we were so overwhelmed and surprised that people kind of understood and enjoyed our vision, and it's really humbling to see that like people actually come and think that we're good at what we do, which is awesome. Another little funny, I guess it's a little bit sad, but we laugh at it now. We were coming back from a pop-up that we were doing, a baby face in Wollongong. So we were shut for the Wednesday. We were opening on the Thursday. We had 4 people booked. One of those tables cancelled, and that was the day that Gourmet Traveller released their 2-page spread on us, saying that, you know, how amazing we were, and that was awesome. But then that second table cancelled as well. So Mal went over to Ainsley Cellars and bought a 6-pack of Rodenbachs, and then we ate the roast chicken that we cooked up for that service, and had a bit of a laugh and went home and shut the restaurant that night. But yeah, I mean, coming from those early days, I guess we still are in the early days. We've grown a lot, and we've got an awesome customer base and community that supported us and continue to support us through this time, which is really cool.
And I guess you kind of were on a bit of a roll. You opened your first restaurant. It was doing really well after some challenges, and then a global pandemic arrives.
Yeah.
Do you want to just tell us about that sort of the first month and sort of when you noticed the impact on your business and those first couple of weeks?
Yeah. When it started to get a little bit more serious in terms of like thinking about how it was going to affect our business, we both Ross and I was kind of struggling with the moral, I guess, predicament of being what's best for the business, what's best for people in general. You know, we have a business where we do serve quite a lot of people that are in a small space, and we don't want to be the reason that anybody gets sick, or we've also got a voice, and people, we need to set a good example. So how do we do this in the best way possible? And then they released that we could only have one person every 4 square meters, and then we were reducing the numbers of customers in the restaurant. But all we could think about was, I think that we should just do takeaway or shut for a little bit and then figure out what we want to do, because this is a lot more serious than we thought it was 2 months ago. I guess. So then we shut for a couple of days. We all had a big chat, thought about what's the best way to kind of tackle this. And I think at the end of the day, all we wanted to do was just make sure that we were all still in our jobs. You know, how can we keep all our staff employed, even including because all of our floor staff are all casual as well. How do we protect them? Lots of those staff live out of home, so it's a lot of pressure when you open a business to understand that you are providing someone with a wage so that they can live. And then when something like this happens, it's kind of like, oh, well, now there's a lot more pressure on that. And how do I keep them, safe, and us safe, and, busy as well, I guess.
And so you guys went away and had a chat about what to do, and you did, you closed the restaurant for a period of time. Was there a contemplation of not opening again?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it that was just never really a thing that you'd think about?
Yeah, I think there was a bit of a discussion about that, and I think every venue and every business is different. But I think for us, we work so much anyway. I don't think that we could shut and not do anything. I think for all of our mental health as well, we all wanted to keep busy and make sure that we were doing something so that we were mentally stable. But as well, from a business perspective, we are a brand, and we don't know how long this is going to go for, and how long, if we shut, we're going to shut for. So we want to make sure that we're still kind of present in people's minds, and don't become invisible, I guess.
One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you guys was that my dining experience the first time I ate there was arguably the best meal that I had that year in a restaurant. And I guess the reason I wanted to talk to you is that when this happened, you guys would have had to make the decision of how can we replicate that in a takeaway sense, or what are we going to do? What are some of the things you looked at in, just sort of turning to takeaway is one thing, but how did you transfer what you presented as pilot to the takeaway market?
I think we were all kind of chatting about it. We were like, what do we do? Do we rename it? Do we keep it as Pilot? Then Ross came up with Pilot Presents, so it's kind of like a take on our brand, but we're doing something like a little bit different. And then in terms of like the menu development, Mal and Barrier are definitely the people behind that. We kind of just said, you can cook whatever you want. And I think for them, because there's no there is restrictions in terms of like what's going to travel well. They've never worked in takeaway before. I'm just so proud and impressed by what they did in a week's time by changing the entire menu. But we kind of were just like, what do we like to eat? Let's kind of do like cheeky versions of those things, like Barry's from the Netherlands, and chips and satay sauce is just a thing that he is obsessed with. So we had to put that on there. Potato scallops, of course. Mal makes an amazing congee, so that's pretty fun. So we've been changing it quite a lot, and just thinking about interesting things that we can do, and like little cheeky takes on what you would get from like a takeaway shop, I guess, which is pretty fun.
And on weekends as well, you're doing like a Sunday night dinner pack or something like that. Is that right? That it's kind of decided by you guys on the day?
Yeah. So it's a bit freestyle at the moment. We are we are working on trying to be a bit more organised with that. But we're learning. Never done takeaway. Yeah. So we were like, how do we kind of do something that's a little bit more similar to what we were doing as a restaurant, a full experience, a full dinner pack, using produce that we are excited by. Yeah, so that's up to Mal every week, and he designs a menu. So he does like a little shared entree, a main course, and we're using frugi for dessert, which is pretty fun as well. Just because we want to support local, we're getting so much support, so we definitely don't want to miss out on frugi ice cream, which is a local ice cream shop. So we have to make sure that we buy their ice cream as well.
What surprised you about this whole COVID-19 experience?
Personally, I did not think that I would be as affected as I am. I think as someone that works on the floor, and I'm sure that there's so many other people in hospitality that feel this way, I feel like my skills are not useful, I guess, in the same sense. I can't serve people. I can't run them through the menu and make their night. I can sell bottles of wine to people in the shop, and I'm definitely sure that I talk people's ear off about like every wine that they're looking at, and what they should eat when I get the chance. But yeah, I guess I really kind of missed that connection, and I didn't realize how lucky I was and how much I loved that job until it wasn't my job anymore, I guess. But I still am very lucky. Like, I'm so happy that we have been able to adapt, and I'm very proud of what we're doing, but I definitely do miss service a lot.
Why did you get into hospitality? Can you tell us about the early days?
Yeah, I guess like I've always loved to eat, and I've always loved to cook. My mum was a home ec teacher, so she taught me a lot in the kitchen, especially with bake all the time. My dad's always been very experimental with cooking at home, and restaurants were kind of always a special occasion thing in our house, when it's your birthday, you get to pick what restaurant you want to go to, even if it's just like the Thai restaurant down the road, or if you want mum to cook dinner for you. It was always a really special thing. And I was just always so inspired by, when we went somewhere, how controlled and how delicious, and the way that the waiters and everybody made you feel super comfortable in what might otherwise be like a, how do I say this, an uncomfortable environment, I guess.
In a general sort of restaurant industry sense, how long do you think this takeaway model is sustainable? And how has that ride of being a takeaway been for you guys?
Look, I think we're going to just have to do it for as long as we have to. I think that I guess the thing that worries me is, if it does go for a long time, will that novelty of everybody doing takeaway and being able to get takeaway from such great restaurants wear off? If so, I think the hospitality industry is always adapting, and we're always thinking about what people want and trying to to kind of do that, as well as being creative and making things work. So I think, yeah, I think that we're just going to have to see how it goes, and adapt as we go along. Like, if people continue to buy dinner packs and our takeaway trade goes down a little bit, we'll have to reassess that. Are people are people coming into the restaurant and only buying bottles of wine? All right, how do we figure that out? I think when everything kind of starts to go back to normal, and slowly, I'm sure that they'll slowly reopen restaurants, but there'll still be that social distancing. How do we make that work? Because we wouldn't be able to sustain a restaurant if we can only put 12 people in our dining room. So I think just thinking about all of those things, and just adapting, which is what I feel like everybody everywhere has been doing for the past couple of weeks, I guess.
Do you think this experience will change what you guys do on the other side of this pandemic?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of things that we were thinking about doing as a restaurant, but were a bit concerned about if people would still come or like us, or would they still support us if we did these things. And I think, from the amount of community support we've received over the past couple of weeks, people believe in us and they like what we're doing, and it is so mind blowing the amount of people that have continued to support us. And so I think it kind of instills this confidence in you that maybe I am doing the right thing. Maybe people do like what we're doing, and we should just have a bit more confidence and do what we like, because they trust us.
I was just going to say, how important have the local community been in that sense for you guys? Obviously they're supporting you, but is there much more to it than that?
Yeah, I think there's people that part of our regular customer base who have been getting takeaway once or twice a week, which is just insane. But I think even just like people in the hospitality community around Canberra, or friends and family that come in, and they might not even buy anything, but they just come in and say hi and ask you how you are, and you don't realize that, how much that kind of helps you mentally, when you get that kind of support. And I've always been pretty on top of my mental health, and never super upset about anything. And I think, yeah, having people coming in and asking you how you are and having a bit of a chat about it, and affirming to you that, like, you're going to be okay, and what you're doing is all right, is so important, almost more important than the coming in and buying things.
What are you missing from restaurants at the moment?
Everything. Um, I mean, I miss going to them. I really miss working in one. Um, I'm very grateful that I can still go to work every day, and we can still all work together, and even though it's a different environment, we're still there. But I think the sad thing about what's going to happen is a lot of people might not open, and I guess I just miss the experience, the whole excitement of, following someone, following a chef or a restaurant, and from when they open to actually being there and experiencing that is just something that is exciting. Sharing a bottle of wine with your friends for celebrating something at a certain point. There's just something about restaurants that are really exciting, and they're also really fun, which I really miss.
I think you're not alone in missing restaurants. Do you think that this whole experience, the fact that, something's been taken away from us, that when it's open up again, do you think we'll see restaurants in a new light? How do you see restaurants after the pandemic?
I think everybody, not just hospitality workers, will be super excited to get back out there, and I don't think that many people realised how much they probably ate out. I think even just things like, not even just like the premium restaurants, just going to, a beer garden and having a beer and things like that is something that was in most people's, daily or weekly lives, which is very exciting. But I think a great thing to come out of this is there's such a huge feeling of support and community. It is quite a competitive industry, and I think after all this, we can all just like high five and shake hands and be like, yeah, we survived it. Of course, there's going to be some people that don't, and that's a bit sad. But for those of us that have been through it and supported each other, I think there's just going to be a huge party at the end, and it's going to be an experience.
Restaurants being open, is obviously important for producers and suppliers, who are sort of forgotten about a lot at the moment, and they're really hurting. What do you think has been the overall impact on producers?
I think this is another reason kind of why we wanted to stay open. I think that they're hurting quite badly. I mean, like, there's so many restaurants that have had to close, or us that have, there's certain things that we can't buy because we can't spend that money, or it might not travel well. So, yeah, I definitely think there's a huge impact on producers, and all we can do is kind of try and support them as best we can. And even in our dinner packs, we write like a little note about what they're eating and where it's from, and we use Brightside Produce, which is a little farm out at Captain's Flat, and they do weekly produce boxes, so we kind of like give them a little plug there, and any way that we can, we kind of try and support them, even if it's not by buying everything that they have, but we can definitely talk about where things come from and encourage other people to do the same, I guess.
Where do you find your source of hope in this, what advice could you give to other young professionals out there who might have been on the verge or are on the verge at some stage in the near future of opening their own restaurant, like you've done? What advice would you give to them?
I think just believing in your idea and your concept, and having the balls to do it, because I feel like that's a lot of things that's a thing that stops a lot of people from doing things, is not feeling like they're capable. But I think everybody is, if you just go ahead and do it. I also think just being able to listen and reflect. When we opened our restaurant, all we did was just ask people that were smarter and more experienced with us, if we could do it, and they just kept saying yes. So then we just kept doing what we were doing, I guess. So I think, yeah, just being able to ask the right questions, and nothing's ever too silly, I guess, because I know that I've asked a a lot of people questions that I thought that I might, might make me look silly, but there's so many things that you need to know, particularly when you own a business. Like, I guess you become everything to that venue. The plumber, the cleaner.
Dash, it's been great. Listen, can you keep in touch? Let us know how you go with the, especially when the dinner packs evolve further.
Yeah, for sure.
And stay safe, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Huck.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Stay safe, isolate and be well.